Welcome back into the workshop for another little bit more of a positive update on the MFT style of top. Now, I've been banging on, yes I know, I apologise for that, and then I don't apologise for that, about the need for the tolerances and accuracies of this top to be quite high. In fact, very bloody high. Now, I've just drilled these holes through here. I've still got to do these ones. That's fine. And I've got another slightly different approach, but the same but different. Anyway, the way of checking it, I suppose, the tolerances that is, of these holes is, will my bar with the registration pins on it fit? And the answer I can give you straight away is yes. I've just moved it to there. This set of holes here was the one that I've got the most concern about. It is because I found the 3-4-5ing squaring method, I had a wiggle in my two bars, the vertical bar here and the diagonal bar, the one which gives the squareness. I had a little bit of a wiggle in it. And a wiggle in that situation is not a good thing. I chose a position largely off how my big square squared it up, clamped it off, drilled the holes. Did they fit? The worst possible one would be this hole here. This was where the bar and pins would line up. So this one is the one past it. As you come back closer to the pivot point, any discrepancy would be absolutely minor. However, no, in fact, it was this set here, this set of holes here. No, I'm going to reword that. No, it's this set here. So as I come back to the pivot, the amount of movement of the bar would have been incrementally smaller. So this hole and this hole were the worst ones. These holes out here were already existing. Does my bar fit with the registration pins? And the answer is yes, but it's a little bit tight. Can it drop down completely? Yes, I've had it down, and they're damned hard to get out because they're of that tightness. So I'm within hundredths of a millimetre. Literally, not tenths, hundredths, pick the number, of a millimetre. So very, very happy with the accuracy, but I'm not elated. Now I'm just going to put this down a minute, and I'll pull that bar out. Hey, the things we do. It will go in there. Will it go in there? Yes, it will. Will it go in there? Yes, it will, of course. And as I go further back, will it go in there? Yes, it will. It's not quite as tight. Maybe it's as much to do with the tightness of the hole. It is. That's tight because that's got a zero wriggle. And I've talked about that. There's ones that I can use that has a little bit of a bit more tolerance, and that's possible. Anyway, I'll put that back in there. Not yet to the point that I wanted to, make, but I come right back to here and I check the fit, and it is quite nice. Thank you very much. It's reasonably tight, but as I say, it's probably got as much to do with the bore tolerance than the position tolerance. But here's another way of looking at it. Once I get that back out. If I want to check for square, not just distance, so yes, that's important because that's the distance that I'm going to have to reference to when I make my saw cuts, remembering. Does my voice sound like it's got a little bit more positive tone than the previous video, which I was a bit miffed about? this is the side I'll be working from. This will be where the track saw is, in this zone here, and it's this distance out here that will be used to make my measurements from off of a set rail, sort of. Okay, so just bear with that. So these holes here, this set that were the most questionable, still good, but questionable, these have the greatest demand. So if I can use that distance as a critique, what about the diagonals? Now that hole there matches up with that hole there. It's not going down because it's at... Oh, okay, I'll do it for you just because you asked. There's the diagonal. The diagonal ain't bad. Now, to be fair, what I need to do is that same thing with a longer bar, so I get back to these sets of holes, that I use a bigger bar that gets back to these sets of holes. I wasn't pointing the camera in the right direction. If my 3, 4, 5ing or the 6, 8, 10 squaring approach is accurate, I can put a pin in here and measure out there with the pins in the bar, rather than try and having the two bars together, and that's where I was getting the intolerance. So yes, I can have that distance, which is the most critical one, as I said before, but being able to do this gives me a lot of confidence that whatever tolerances I am working with, I'm kind of nailing it. So otherwise that would never have gone in like that, and it goes in different places as well. Yippee. So what should I actually do that right now? Should I put yous down? You're going to be staring at my timber rack for a few moments. You might even get to see my skinny little body. Here, not. But if I take... that was nice. Oh, that was nice. Nice because it came out easily, which means that tolerances are good. So, now, if you can still hear me, this set of holes here, as indicated by the mark, and everyone knows that if there's a felt pen mark on it, it must be accurate. If I put a pin in there, and what is my maximum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I go out 8 out the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that can't be right. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. It is, yeah, because I told you that was the pin, wasn't it? Another cough. Excuse me. But if I take my long rails, now this is going to be very, very embarrassing if it doesn't. In fact, if it doesn't work, I'm going to delete the damn thing. Of course, why wouldn't I? Too embarrassed. But if I take my other pin, put it out there, assuming I've got the 6 and 8 correct. If I then put the bushing in the appropriate hole, this one, remembering this is where I had the most concern for squareness. I know it's going to work. I haven't tried it before. How do I know? Well, it was the, how would you say, the bars actually did fit. I wasn't too sure of the squareness. And as I said, there is a little bit of an issue with the distance, a little bit, but we are talking hundreds of millimetres. And how far do you go before you just say you're being obsessive? Yeah, that's never been said about me before. But if I can do this easily, in fact, I'm going to make it even harder on me. I'm going to pull that one out and use this one because I know this one's got a known tightness to it. Hang on, I'll just I'll put you down again. I can't do it with one hand. Oh, yeah, that is super tight. And if I put it in there, yeah, I've picked you up again, and I put, oh God, that's tight. Ooh. We know that we have no problem with tolerance there. If we go there and there, hey, I'm not deleting this video. That then is, there's no wiggle in my bar that I can discern. There will be some there if I really had a good look, but there's no way that line of holes is out. I'm going to give you an excuse for doubting me in a moment, but that square check, pretty darn good. Now, I know that there are some rocket engineers out there that would say, oh, bollocks, you've got 3 panels that aren't tied together, David. The panels could move, and you're quite correct, they could. But if that's the case, they haven't moved. And there's the join. They haven't moved much. That's the only way I can actually check it, is which I'll probably do off camera because you don't need to be that bored. I can move this across one set of holes, or 2 sets of holes, whatever I have to tie the 3 panels together with one of these boards. That kind of makes sense. I wanted to go here because it was the one that would have shown up the discrepancy. But yes, you are quite correct, you rocket scientists, you. I could have just forced it out inadvertently, of course, because I wouldn't do anything underhanded, would I? But that could have forced it out. But you could see that, well, hopefully, you saw that I just rocked it into place and it went straight in. So, yay, I've got to say. So, I'm happy. I'll be more happy when I can eliminate that rocket science question, or scientist question, because, to be fair, it was a shortcoming of this test. Anyway, there you go. If you can check the diagonal after the fact and it still registers as accurate, you've got a good chance you got it right, if the 3 boards were tied together. Right, so there we go. We're a little bit happier. As I said, you probably hear it in the tone of my voice. I hadn't done that before. I'd only used a small one, and well, there you go. I'm happy. Now I've just got the rest of the holes to do. I've got the remaining set to go through here. I am actually enjoying the use of the single bar set up on some packers to space it off the table so it clears the drill bit. It's got about a 32mm space from the bar to the very tip, and I'm packing it up with 2 lots of melamine, which is 36mm. It gives me a few 4mm clearance. I slide it along, clamp it off in place, and then I'm done. This next one won't be quite as next series of holes won't be quite as easy. I might have to change the method because I can't cantilever it enough off the end of the table to allow me to get my sacrificial board underneath to clamp it to support the under surface of the melamine. So, oh well. That's the issue of making one tiny little logical alteration to the set out that hadn't been planned, and now I'm reaping the reward of that, and not a good way. So, my problem. Rightio. All in all, I'm going to give this as a thumbs up. As I said, the demands for this particular way of doing it is quite high. I need to remedy it. To be fair, if I could just rely on that, the wear surface, the heat shrink, being tied accurately to the bushing, I don't need to get my mate to machine something up. And that also means too that if you were to try and replicate this, you would have to source the materials that would best match what I'm doing here. And that might not always be possible. You know, AliExpress or Banggood or wherever I got these from, AliExpress I think, the pins, these ones here, they came, I thought they were 8mm, they weren't, they're only 7.something, 7.04 to 7.14. So these themselves varied. And I had to choose the 7.14 to then put heat shrink on it to make it as close as possible to 8mm, or more correctly, that is close to the bore size of the bushing, which is, turns out, I've only just realised that today, 8.1mm. So it's got their tolerance for this to permit these drill bits to go in. They have to allow a tolerance, otherwise you'd be grinding either the bushing or your drill bit down. So it's got to have a tolerance. 8mm, supposedly. Tiny little bit of wiggle. But these are for drilling dowel holes for wooden dowels. They're not designed for what I'm doing. So no criticisms of the items. But matching something together, cobbling the things together, is a bit of an ask. That would be my one criticism. If you can't replicate what I'm doing by simply going to the same websites and having a wee bit of a search for these items. These are just machine standoffs, the dowels, the whatever they're called. I call them standoffs. They're just 304 stainless standoffs. I've got others that are mild steel standoffs, supposedly exactly the same, but they're not. Or, worded another way, they're not the same compared to the ones that I've got aren't the same. These came in the same bag, and these aren't the same to other ones of these. And all the big ones, there's only about 4 or 5 of them, have got this on, the heat shrink on. Is your heat shrink the same size as mine? I don't know. I'm not going to answer that. But it's all those variables that would make this approach a little bit more fickle. And you would have to accept that your tolerances are different. Here's the thing. I actually did this while I've got you trapped here. Somewhere in my little selections, no, I might not. But I have some dowel that is friction or interference fit. And if you wanted to use dowel in this situation, it actually probably wouldn't be a bad idea. That's for if you're going to register things. The problem is getting your steel dowel to take the timber dowel. But there could be a workaround on that as well. I don't know. I'm not going down that path. I was just making that comment. This was my first attempt. It worked pretty darn good. In fact, I'll show you just how pretty dang good. That, no wiggle. That is it's almost to the point of interference fit. No wiggle. But it was getting, it's actually, the trouble was, the dowels aren't always as round as you think they are. And when I mic'd up the distance from one point to another around the circumference, some of the measurements were slightly out. I now question it though, because it fits so well. This is actually probably a plus. It's the inconsistencies that allow some of that tolerance to be absorbed. thing is, that was drilled using a that was positioned and drilled using a lathe chuck on my drill press. So despite the fact that there may have been different measurements, very, very slight, it may well be that the hole itself for the pin might have been dead nuts accurate. Might be, because I couldn't quantify that. I went down the route of the metal pin. So that's interesting. While I've got you, geez, this is going to be a long one. Stay right where you are. Well, you don't have to, but stay right where you are. Pull that out. Remembering these were zero tolerance in my terminology. Zero tolerance, no wiggle, fit. Well, there's a question. I just slipped that wooden dowel up into the hole with the pin in it. It doesn't move at all. It kind of bears out the fact that maybe I got too clever. I didn't. I got too clever using those, and I dismissed the use of these dowels. Don't even know why I kept them. But that I have, that's interesting. That does not move at all. It's no help anyway. It's actually when I register two lots of bushings together, that's the problem. Oh, that has got zero wiggle in it. Holy moly. Anyway, that's another thought for another day, and there's trouble. You've got to limit your choices sometimes, and going back down that route, I don't know whether it's a positive, the timber dowel type route, but it says something. Anyway, that's it. I'm off. I've got to go to the shops and buy something. Right, not for the workshop, by the way. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to leave you. Sorry to say. You're probably clapping. Right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.